This is the raised cup stitch. We're going to stitch it right here. You see I've drawn a little triangle. You don't need to do that. You can also eyeball your triangle, but I drew it here for the sake of this video. So I am going to do 3 straight stitches. Over my triangle shape. This is an isolated stitch, but it also could be considered a woven stitch because most of the stitch is going to be worked above the fabric, with the exception of these 3 lines. So I have my triangle shape. Now I'm going to bring my needle and thread right up at a corner. So there's my needle, and I'm bringing it above the fabric, and all of the rest of the stitches will remain above the fabric. So I'm going to take my needle under the triangle and under my working thread and pull through, making a small knot. And then right next to that, I'm going to do the same thing. It's going under the triangle thread, under my working thread, and pull through. Try and keep the same tension in this. Now I'm going to shift my hoop, and we're going to do 2 stitches on the next side. So I'm taking it under the triangle, under my working thread, and I'm just pulling through gently. Not pulling too tight. You don't want these super tight stitches. You just want them to be nicely attached to this triangle line. And you can maneuver these around so that there's a little bit of a space in between those knots. And then I'm going to shift my hoop one more time. Oops. So that you can see. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. Take my needle under the triangle, under my working thread, and pull through. And then one last time here. It's under there. Okay. So that is your first row. And I'm going to twist around again to my starting row. If I were working this and not filming it, I probably wouldn't have it attached to my stand because this one shifts around a lot, so it's easier to do it when it's not connected. So now I'm going to take my needle, and instead of going under the triangle line that we did the first time around, I'm just going to slip it under this little stitch that I created with my first row of stitches. So it's the small stitch in between those 2 little knots. I'm going to take that through, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm taking it under that little stitch and then under my working thread, and that creates a new knot that I just kind of gently shimmy into place. Shift my hoop again. And I'm going to do that at the next section too. So now I'm going under this little knot, or under this little line that I created, and under my working thread, and pulling it through. Just adjusting my knot. And adjusting my hoop. Okay, and then another one. let's see, I'm going under this little stitch. You can see that your stitch that you're making does move around a little bit now, which is fine because you can position it into place. And then I'm finishing that up. And I'm going to take it off of here so you can see it clearly. Now, sometimes I use a thicker thread with this, and when I use a thicker thread, it kind of hides these little anchor stitches, that original triangle that you shaped out. But with a thinner thread, you kind of see it, which I'm okay with. So then you finish it by just taking your needle down into the center, and that is the raised cup stitch. Now, if you wanted to add a bead to that, I like to add a bead to the center. This needle is a little too thick, and I have a thinner needle, but right now I'm just going to try and stick the bead on the thread without rethreading a whole needle. Let's see how that works. Okay. And then I'll just rethread this needle. Okay, so my needle's on, my thread is on my bead. Oops, I needed my needle and thread above the fabric. Whenever you're adding a bead, it's a good idea to add it when the needle and thread are above the fabric. So I'm gonna just bring it up. I'm adding that bead to the center here. So that's why I'm going to bring it up right in the center, stick my bead on, and again, normally I would just rethread the needle, but for the sake of time and a video, I'm just manually putting that on the thread and rethreading with a larger needle. And now I just ignore that bead, it's on the thread. I'm going to take that down right into the center, and I'm going to adjust it down in there so that the cup shape is around the bead, and it just kind of nestles in there and looks really cool. It looks like a little egg in a nest, or it looks like the center of a flower. So that's the raised cup stitch.